The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Listen, all you New Yorkers.
Taxi! Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
You are now entering the Stone Zone, and I'm your host, Roger Stone, the ultimate political junkie. Well, the Department of Justice has reportedly opened a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll, the wacky author and former advice columnist who brought civil rights lawsuits against President Donald Trump as part of the larger conspiracy to try to impoverish President Trump to prevent him from coming back into the presidency. See, New York State Democrats worked with some Republicans to change state law to extend the statute of limitations to allow Carroll to file her lawsuit. According to CNN, federal prosecutors are now examining whether E. Jean Carroll committed perjury during litigation tied to her allegations against Trump. You'll remember when Carroll was being interviewed by CNN, she specifically said that she found the idea of rape sexy. Anderson Cooper cut immediately to a commercial at that point. Carroll, of course, accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her in a Bergdorf Goodman's dressing room sometime in the 1990s. She actually wore a Diane von Furstenberg suit, claiming that was the suit she was wearing when she was assaulted, only to learn that the suit had not yet been designed or issued or manufactured. So a lot of questions about the veracity of Ms. Carroll. A civil jury later found that President Trump was liable for sexual assault and defamation, leading to a massive financial judgment. The president has, of course, appealed. This happened after the New York Democrats changed the law specifically to allow this particular case to proceed. Little did they know that that change in law would also jam up former Mayor Eric Adams and former Governor Andrew Cuomo in similar sexual assault lawsuits. But now the focus is turned to Carroll's own statements under oath. The reported investigation centers on a 2022 deposition in which Carroll said she was personally responsible for her legal fees. But then 2 weeks before the trial, her lawyers disclosed that billionaire Democrat donor Reid Hoffman, an Epstein Island regular, had helped fund some of the legal funds and expenses for this assault on the president. President Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, argued that Carroll had concealed the truth for months. The case is reportedly being handled by federal prosecutors in Chicago and officials in the Deputy Attorney General's office. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is not involved because he previously represented Trump personally in this matter. This investigation, in my opinion, is long overdue. Those who conspired to destroy President Trump need to be held accountable, particularly when they themselves have lied. For years, Democrats and their allies used civil litigation, media campaigns, and lying activists to batter the president politically while demanding that everyone simply accept their narrative at face value. Now, one of the highest profile Trump accusers is under scrutiny herself. If she lied under oath, she too should be held accountable. This will also potentially scare off other false accusers have been weaponized since the days of, well, Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination. I've been watching the congressional redistricting very carefully because I think it's going to have a major impact on the 2026 elections. Republicans, by my calculation, are poised to gain a major edge in the battle for control of the U.S. House, with new redistricting maps potentially giving the Republicans as many as 10 additional seats leading into November. The fight began in Texas, where Republicans redrew congressional boundaries to strengthen their chances of holding the House. Democrats responded in states like California, but so far, Republicans appear to have the advantage. Democrats overreached badly in Virginia, where they put on the ballot a ballot measure to gerrymander elections, throwing out due deceptive language attempting to bamboozle the voters. They wanted to go from a delegation that is today 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans to a delegation that would have been 10 Democrats and 1 Republican. Fortunately, the states knocked that provision down. Several Republican states across the South have moved aggressively after major Supreme Court ruling came forward determining race-based redistricting maps to be essentially unconstitutional. In other words, you cannot draw a congressional district based on a racial quota or calculation. Louisiana and Alabama are still pursuing maps that could further improve Republican prospects, though court fires continue in those states. Republicans currently hold a narrow House majority, and history suggests the president's party often faces serious headwinds in midterm elections. At least that is the history. But then before Donald Trump, we never had a businessman as president. So I would argue all the old rules are off. Republican strategists say redistricting has reduced the number of competitive seats Republicans must defend and could actually help the party keep control. Democrats are calling the effort partisan gerrymandering, which is pretty funny since that's what they have done in states like California and Illinois as well as New York. Democrats have traditionally and historically used every tool available to maximize their own power in blue states, including California, where votes were asked to set aside an independent redistricting commission in order to create more Democrat-friendly seats. Democrats have held systematic advantages while Republicans just sit on their hands and kind of let it happen. But with President Trump as the leader of his party, Republicans are going on offense to even the playing field. Both parties are now preparing for even more aggressive map fights ahead of 2028. Republicans are using lawful tools to protect their majority, while Democrats can only cry foul when they are losing the map-making war. In politics, power unused is power wasted. Use power or lose power, as I say in Stone's Rules. President Trump is showing Republicans how to strategically use their power to save the country. Freedom 250, which is the country's formal celebration of our 250th anniversary as a country, has unveiled a star-studded musical lineup for America's semi-quintennial celebration, marking 250 years since the nation's founding. Free celebration, which will be on the National Mall, will feature iconic artists including Vanilla Bean, Bret Michaels, Poison, and, of course, the Commodores, with organizers promising an unforgettably patriotic event. Admission is free with an RSVP. President Donald Trump created Task Force 250 by executive order to help lead the country's 250th birthday celebration. That effort helped launch Freedom 250, a national initiative designed to bring the celebration of American independence to communities across the country. The events will span more than 2 weeks and include all 50 states, with the flagship celebration taking place July 4th in Washington, D.C. The White House says Freedom 250 will work with private groups, nonprofits, and educational institutions to carry this great celebration into the heartland. The initiative also invites Americans to participate in leadership roles, including as state ambassadors and city liaisons. Some events will feature Freedom Trucks, a custom-built mobile museum designed to bring an immersible American history experience directly to the American people. Celebration expected to culminate on July 4th with an address by President Donald Trump and what the White House says will be the largest fireworks display in world history. This could also be combined with a UFC fight from the White House lawn set place right now to take place on June 13th. That, by the way, is the hottest ticket in town. President Donald Trump's birthday also. From a conservative perspective, this is exactly the kind of national birthday America deserves. Bold, wholesome, patriotic, and inclusive in the appropriate sense of the word. Every man, woman, and child who loves the country is invited to come and celebrate. After years of allowing far-left activists to tear down the country, Freedom 250 offers Americans a chance to celebrate what makes us exceptional. It's time to come together and unify behind the MAGA agenda and everything that is restoring American greatness. Meanwhile, a new Government Accountability Office is confirming the obvious as they found that the Biden administration turned humanitarian parole into a mass catch-and-release pipeline at the southern border. According to the Government Accounting Office's Research Department, the Department of Homeland Security under President Joe Biden and former DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas dramatically expanded parole authority between early 2021 and January 20th, 2025. Before Biden, the authority had been used far more sparingly. The report found that in fiscal years 2019 and 2020, parole was granted in roughly 3% to 28% of southwestern border encounters. But beginning in the summer of 2021, those numbers surged dramatically. By December 2022, 89% of encounters resulted in parole. That means nearly 9 out of 10 illegal migrants encountered at the border were released into the country at the peak of Joe Biden's presidency. The GAO also warned that the mass parole system overwhelmed immigration enforcement and left ICE without readily accessible information needed to track parole status, monitor migrants, and take enforcement action when appropriate. These numbers show that the Biden border crisis was a planned policy. The Biden administration made the conscious decision to overturn the country with illegals. The Biden administration used bureaucratic language in an attempt to disguise their open border policies of first release, track later, and enforce never. They attempted to bamboozle the public into supporting this, but all that happened was a major backlash. That backlash helped bring Donald Trump back into the White House. Now, a firm majority of the public supports mass deportations and recognizes illegal immigration as an existential threat to our country. Democrats will turn back on the spigot of illegal immigrations as soon as they come back into power, if they do. That is why we can't let that happen. It begins with a sharp rebuke of Democrats during the crucial midterm elections. In Minnesota, a Somali woman was charged with a massive Medicaid fraud. Federal authorities have arrested 2 Minnesota women accused of running a massive Medicare fraud scheme that allegedly stole more than $21 million from taxpayers through the state's autism treatment program. Prosecutors say Shamso Ahmed Hassan, 55, and Hanan Maral Yasuf, 25, were indicted on multiple charges tied to fraudulent billing through Smart Therapy Center and the Star Autism Center. Investigators allege the scheme ran from May 2020 through December 2024 and involved roughly $46.6 million in fraudulent Medicare claims, with about $21.2 million actually paid out. Authorities say the centers billed for autism services that either never happened or were not eligible for reimbursement. Prosecutors also allege the defendants paid kickbacks to families in order to enroll children, allowing the business to keep Medicaid in those children's names. 2 women face charges including conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, 8 counts of healthcare fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, making of false statements related to healthcare matters, and 2 counts of money laundering. Officials have said some of the money was sent to Kenya in Africa. Both of those charged remain in federal custody pending further proceedings. This case is another outrageous example of taxpayers being looted by foreign invaders caused by government programs operating with weak rules and oversight. Democrats, of course, are happy to look the other way to reward their new Americans who are imported here to keep them in power in perpetuity. The Trump administration deserves credit for cracking down on these illicit schemes. Other administrations, even some run by Republicans, would have turned a blind eye out of fear of looking racist. No, not the Trump administration. They will give no free passes to diversity. If you're committing fraud against the taxpayers, you should and will be held accountable. There should be no excuses. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone. We've got more politics on the other side, so please don't go away.